Here, right?
I think so. Yes. I think so.
Everybody on the phone can hear us here? Yes. This is part one of the story of the prophet Ezekiel. This chapter opens with an account of the time and place of Ezekiel's prophecy. He had some remarkable visions here. I have heard many people that have described it, and none of them have done a good job. There's so many layers to this, and I couldn't begin to describe it myself. And anyone that tried, I applaud you for that try. There's so much here. And these things have never been seen before by human eyes. We'll start at Ezekiel, the first chapter, the first verse. And it happened in the 30th year, in the fourth month, in the 5th of the month, as I was among the captives by the river Kibar, the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of Elohim. In the 5th of the month, the 5th year of the captivity of Jehoiakim, the king, coming the word of Yahweh became known to Ezekiel, the son of Buzi, the priest, in the land of the Chaldeans by the river Kibar. And there the hand of Yahweh was on him, the prophet. And I looked, and behold, a windstorm came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire flashing itself, and a brightness to it all around. And out of its midst, like the color of polished bronze, it came out of the midst of the fire. Let's all call to mind through this whole prophecy the state in which the prophet, as well as the scattered ecclesia or church, was at the time of these visions with which he was favored. Yahweh Elohim's people are particularly blessed when brought into peculiar situations. Jeremiah was in the dungeon. We'll get to that at another point. Ezekiel in captivity in Chaldea or Babylon. And John in exile in the desolate island of Patmos, which Yahweh Elohim manifested his special tokens of favor upon his prophets. It is a very blessed state to be withdrawn wholly from men in order to enjoy companionship with Yahweh Elohim. It appears by this account that 4 whole years had run out, in which we hear of no vision. And it should seem that all this while the ecclesia was within Chaldea. They had no ordinances and means of grace or Sabbaths, plural, as a wife deserted of her husband. Think of your privileges and mark Yahweh Elohim's mercy toward Israel. Hardly deserving, is it? Though a wife of whoredoms, and those sent into captivity, yet notice that Yahweh Elohim hates putting away. He will do it if you deserve it, but he hates doing it. He will not leave himself without witness, though. Ezekiel shall be commissioned. Verse 5. Also from its midst came the likeness of 4 living creatures, and this was how they looked. They had the likeness of a man, and 4 faces were to each, and 4 wings to each of them. And their feet were straight feet, and the sole of their feet like the sole of a calf's foot. And they sparkled like the color of burnished bronze. And the hands of a man extended from under their wings on their 4 sides. And their faces and their wings were to the 4 of them, joined each one to others by their wings. They did not turn in their going. Each one went toward the front of their face. And the likeness of their faces, the face of a man on one, and the face of a lion on the right side to the 4 of them, and the face of an ox on the left to the 4 of them, and the face of an eagle to the 4 of them. So their faces were, and their wings were spread upward. To each, the 2 wings were joined, and the 2 wings of each covering their bodies. And each went toward the front of their faces, to where the spirit was to go. There they went. They did not turn in their going. And the best that I can see is a row of them, whichever direction they were going in, all of them went the same direction and turned together as one wing. Impressive, but I wouldn't want to see that coming at me. But one day you will. The only place that this is occurring other than this is Revelation 14. That was after the people of God have all left the earth, and the people that didn't obey were finally punished. And this is what they saw. And that's a whole other story. Verse 13. And the likeness of the living creatures, they appeared like coals of burning fire, like the appearance of torches. It was continually circling among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning. And the living creatures kept running and returning, like the appearance of a flash of lightning. And I looked at the living creatures, and behold, one wheel was on the earth beside the living creatures with the four of its faces. The appearance of the wheels and their workmanship was like the color of beryl. And the one likeness was to the four of them. And their appearance and their workmanship was like the wheel in the middle of a wheel. They went on the four of their sides in their going. They did not turn in their going. And also their rims were high to them, even awesome to them. And their rims were full of eyes. This is more frightening all the time. Wouldn't want to bump into that and fight against it. And these are angels, by the way. If I missed that, these are angels. One type of angel. There are other types. These are cherubim. Verse 19. And in the going of the living creatures, the wheels went beside them. And in the lifting up of the living creatures from on the earth, the wheels were lifted up. There where the Spirit was to go, there they went. There their spirit was to go. And the wheels were lifted up along with them. For the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. Verse 21. In their going, these went, and in their standing still, these still stood still. And in their being lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up along with them. For the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. And a likeness was over their heads of the living creatures, an expanse like the color of awesome crystal, stretched out over their heads from above. And under the expanse of their wings were straight, the one toward the other, to each 2 wings covering on this side, and to each covering on that side of their bodies. And I heard the sound of their wings, like the sound of great waters, like the voice of the Almighty. In their going was the sound of tumult, like the sound of an army. Like I said, you didn't want to confront this. Only the ones left on the earth that haven't come to Elohim, they're the only ones that will encounter these. Like the voice of the army. In their going was the sound of tumult, like the sound of an army. In their standing still, they let down their wings. And there was a voice from the expanse that was over their heads, In their standing still, they let down their wings. And from above the expanse that was over their heads was an appearance like a stone of lapis lazuli or azure blue, the bluest blue. Anybody ever seen those travelogues from Greece along the seaside on those blue domes over the top of the homes? That's lapis. That's lapis or azure blue. If you've ever seen that. It's the bluest blue. The likeness of a throne, and on the likeness of the throne was a likeness in appearance like a man on it from above. And I saw him like the color of polished bronze, looking like fire within it all around. From the appearance of his loins and upward, and from the appearance of his loins downward, I saw him looking like fire, and brightness to it all around, as the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain. That's a rainbow. That's a rainbow. All of this behind a rainbow? Don't think worldly. You'll get off track completely from this. This is only the Godhead would think of something like this. That going on down here with rainbows is just a pale comparison. Don't even think about it. So appeared the brightness all around. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of Yahweh. That's why you don't think of this. This was his glory. And from this, we think, as usual, that thing was Satan's usual thing, copying off of the master. You gotta read between the lines to get this stuff right. And that's why I do it this way, because this is basically what they did every week in the Jewish temples. They just read from the book. And much of the reading came from the book itself, and the ideas that came forth were the things that jump into your mind from the book with no outside interference from others. Again, this was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of Yahweh Elohim. This is the look of his glory, the rainbow. That's what he was trying to do, assembling it for those people as a rainbow. He was copying off of Yahweh Elohim. Think about that for a minute. And I saw, and I fell on my face, and I heard a one speaking. Ezekiel, the 2nd chapter, the 1st verse. And he said to me, Son of man, stand on your feet, and I will speak to you. And the Spirit entered into me as he spoke to me. And he made me stand on my feet. And I heard him speaking to me. And he said to me, Son of man, I am sending you to the sons of Israel, to the nations, the rebelling ones who have rebelled against me. He kind of is sending them to Israel, these winged cherubim. That would scare me into straightness in every sense of the word. And I heard him speaking to me, and he said to me, Son of man, I am sending you to the sons of Israel, to the nations, the rebelling ones who have rebelled against me. They and their fathers have transgressed against me to this day. And the sons are stiff of face and hard of heart. I am sending you to them, and you shall say to them, So says Yahweh Elohim. And they, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear, for they are a rebellious house. Yea, they shall know that a prophet has been among them. Verse 6. And you, son of man, do not be afraid of them, and of their words do not be afraid. Though briars and thorns are with you, and though you are living among scorpions, do not be afraid of their words, and do not be frightened by their faces, though they are a house of rebellion. He said so many times he does not like rebellion. Verse 7. And you shall speak my words to them, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear or further rebellion. For they are rebellious. Verse 8. But you, son of man, hear what I'm saying to you. Do not be like the rebellious house of rebellion. Open your mouth and eat what I am giving to you. And I looked, and behold, a hand was extended to me. And behold, a roll of a book was in it. And he spread it before me. And it was written on the face and the back. And written on it were weepings and mourning and woe. He caught somebody. Ezekiel, the 3rd chapter, the 1st verse. And he said to me, Son of man, eat what you find. Eat this roll and go speak to the house of Israel. So I opened my mouth, and he made me eat this roll. And he said to me, Son of man, make your belly eat, and fill your bowels with the roll that I give you. And I ate, and it was in my mouth like honey for sweetness. And he said to me, Son of man, go, come to the house of Israel, and speak my words to them. For you are not sent to a people of deep lip and difficult of language. They thought they were, but they aren't. But the house of Israel, not to many people of deep lip and of difficult language, whose words you cannot hear. If I had sent you to them, they would have listened to you, But the house of Israel is not willing to listen to you, for they are not willing to listen to me. For all the house of Israel are strong of forehead and hard of heart. Behold, I have made your face strong over against their faces, and your forehead strong over against their foreheads. I have made your forehead as an adamant, harder than flint. Do not fear them, and do not be frightened by their faces, though they are a house of rebellion. And he said to me, Son of man, all my words which I speak to you, receive into your heart, and hear with your ears, and go. Come to the exiles, to the sons of your people, and speak to them, and say to them, so says the Master Elohim, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear. And the Spirit lifted me up, and I heard behind me a sound of a great tumult. All those beasts that we described earlier behind him, and they still rebel. And the Spirit lifted me up, and I heard behind me a sound of a great tumult, saying, Blessed be the glory of Elohim from his place. And there was the sound of the wings of the living creatures touching each other, one to the other, and the sound of the wheels along with them, and the sound of a great tumult. So the Spirit lifted me up and took me, and I went bitterly in the heat of my spirit. But the hand of Elohim was strong upon me. Then I came to the exiles at Tel Aviv, that same one that's over there now, Tel Aviv. Those dwelling by the river Kibar. And I sat there where they were sitting. I also dwelt there 7 days, being benumbed among them. And it happened at the end of the 7 days, even it happened that the word of Elohim came to me, saying, Son of man, I have made you a watchman for the house of Israel. And hear the word of my mouth, and warn them from me. In my saying to the wicked, dying you shall die. And you do not warn him, and you do not speak to warn the wicked from his wicked way to save his life. He, the wicked, shall die in his iniquity, but I will require his blood at your hand. Verse 19. And you, because you have warned the wicked, and he does not turn from his wickedness or from his way, he, the wicked, shall die in his iniquity. But you have delivered your soul by telling him. Verse 20. And when the righteous turns from his righteousness and does injustice, and I lay a stumbling block before him, he shall die. Remember somewhere somebody said, once saved, always saved? That is proof that does not happen that way. Read that again just for your own aggrandizement. And when the 20, and when the righteous turns from his righteousness and does injustice, and I lay a stumbling block before him, he shall die. Since you have not warned him, he shall die in his sin, and his righteousness which he has done shall not be remembered. Dig in there a minute. All the good you do is erased once you backslide into it and don't have a chance to repent. That's what he was talking about here. You don't know when it's all over for you. Never go backwards. Never go backwards. But I will require his blood at your hand. Verse 21. But you, because you warned him, the righteous, so that the righteous should not sin, and he does not sin. Living, he shall live, because he is warned, and you have delivered your soul. And the hand of Elohim was on me there. And he said to me, rise up, go forth into the plain, and I will speak with you there. And I rose up and went forth into the plain. And behold, there the glory of Elohim was standing, like the glory which I saw by the river Kibar. And I fell on my face, and the Spirit entered into me and stood me on my feet and spoke with me. And he said to me, come, shut yourself within your house. But you, son of man, behold, they shall put on you cords and shall bind you with them. And you shall not go out among them. And I will make your tongue cling to your palate, and you shall be dumb. And there shall not be to them a reproving man. He's fed up with them now. He has silenced their prophet. For they are a rebellious house. But in my speaking to you, I will open your mouth, and you shall say to them, so says the Master Elohim, he who hears, let him hear, and he forbearing, let him forbear. For they are a rebellious house. The following symbols seem as much designed for the prophet himself as for the people. He is commanded of Yahweh Elohim to perform them. They represent the thoughts which, under the inspiration of Yahweh, filled his mind at this time regarding the fate of the city and the state. His thoughts, as well as those of the captives around him, are occupied with Jerusalem, for Jerusalem is almost Israel. Being far from its inhabitants, their imagination is fertile in devising means to bring it before him. Sometimes he portrays a picture of it on a brick or a tile. And sometimes he is carried by a lock of his hair. through the air and set down in the midst of it, in order to behold the iniquities, therefore. Continuing in Ezekiel, the 4th chapter, the 1st verse. And you, son of man, take a brick to yourself and lay it before you, and engrave on it a city, the city of Jerusalem, and lay a siege on it, and build a fort on it, and pour out a ramp on it, and place a camp on it, and set battering rams all around it. And you take a griddle of iron to yourself, and place it as a wall of iron between you and the city, and place your face against it, and it shall be under siege and thrust upon it. It is a sign to the house of Israel. And you lie down on your left side and lay the iniquity of the house of Israel on it. The number of the days that you shall lie down on it, you shall bear their iniquities. For I have laid on you the years of their iniquity, according to the number of days, 390 days. That's a lot of sin. And that's a long time to lay in one place. And you shall bear the house of Israel's iniquity. Verse 6. And when you complete them, even lie on your right side, the second. And you shall bear the house of Judah's iniquity 40 days, a day for a year. I have set it for you, a day for a year. And you shall set your face toward the siege of Jerusalem, and your arm bared, and you shall prophesy over it. And behold, I will put cords on you, and you cannot turn from your side to your other side until you have completed the days of your siege. That's a long time to be tied up on one side for somebody else. But he was their prophet. He had to do this. Verse 9. And you take to yourself wheat, barley, and beans, and lentils, and millet, and spelt. Sounds good so far, huh? And place them in a single vessel, and make them for yourself into bread, to the number of days that you are lying on your side. You shall eat it 390 days. And your food which you shall eat shall be by weight, 20 shekels a day. From time to time you shall eat it, and you shall drink water by measure, the sixth of a hin. From time to time you shall drink, and you shall eat cakes of barley, and you shall bake it with dung of the excrement of man in their sight. That was much for them as what it was for him. And Yahweh Elohim said, even so the sons of Israel shall eat their defiled bread among the nations, there where I will drive them. Then I said, I, Yahweh Elohim, behold, my soul has not been defiled. I have not even eaten a carcass or a torn animal from my youth, even until now. And unclean flesh has not come into my mouth. Verse 15. Then he said to me, see, I have given to you the dung of cattle in place of the dung of man. And you shall make bread over it. Use the heat from it instead of using it itself. He lightened it up for him a little bit. And you shall make bread over it. And he said to me, Son of man, behold, I am breaking the staff of bread in Jerusalem, and they shall eat bread by weight and with anxiety. And they shall drink water by measure and in horror, because they will lack bread and water, and each one be stunned with his brother, and they will waste away in their iniquity. Part 2 next week. Any questions? Any comments? Dwayne?
When I was growing up, I was raised in a Lutheran church. Sizable building.
Mm-hmm.
And a large dome overhead with a circle of lights and clouds in between the blue.
Mm-hmm.
And it was quite lovely. And on 4 sides, they had these 4 faces. And they were all labeled.
Mm-hmm.
St. John was the man, and St. Mark was a cow.
Mm-hmm.
A cow? I looked up, who gives them the authority to give a cow's face to St. Mark? And I don't remember what the other, Matthew was, I don't remember what the others were, but they had the Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they're all labeled after these faces. They had no knowledge whatsoever of what they were doing.
None. Develop.
I was going to ask a question that I don't quite understand. If he was tied up on his bed, who was baking this stuff? Who was baking this? He said, you will bake this different kind of way.
The Father.
Okay. Because if he was tied up with chains and stuff to the bed.
Well, more accurately, in his place, the Son.
Oh, his son was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yahweh, Yeshua was doing it.
Thank you.
That's who he was sent by and assisted by. Any others?
Pastor, I know this is kind of a gross because we're talking about how the breads and foods were baked and how they were baked. Since he was roped up, I'm assuming then that he would release what he was eating laying down.
I didn't say that. I can't assume that.
Right, because it just, the whole process makes me
Closest
think.
I can assume is that it appeared there for him because no one else was there but his Elohim.
I guess that's why they say the mysteries of Elohim, who can know it?
Yep.
And it's just something for us to kind of figure it out, but our minds are not set to understand such comprehension. It's so deep.
Sarah?
Yeah, I was going to say that he said you will make bread for yourself. So apparently he made it tied up some kind of way. But my question is more catered to, did Ezekiel suffer while he was laying? Because I mean, if you think about it, people in comas, and if you're not rotated from time to time, you will have skin breakdown. So I wonder, I mean, I can only assume as well that God protected him from getting
Yeah,
broken down.
Because he did it for him, because he somehow protected him from the lack of movement and of all of the things that can happen to you in that, like the bed sores and all of that. Somehow he put that off of him. It didn't happen to him. And it didn't say it happened, but it didn't say it didn't happen either.
Right.
But somehow he made that a non-issue.
Wow.
Develop.
Saved, always saved. But if you are wicked and you turn from your ways and then go back to it, you're gonna die. And
Yeah.
it says you're gonna die anyway if you know the truth and don't do it.
Yeah. It's different when you just blindly go through life. Once you hear the words of this book and where those words came from, and you do that, and you stop doing it, everything you did in the faith
Stuff
is gone away once you go back. And so many people think that they can go back, well, I can go back tomorrow.
Yes.
Who promised you tomorrow?
This is what that's what I'm saying. All the good things that you did, forget that. You, whatever you
Once you
did.
go back, all that's gone.
Yeah.
He says it plainly right there.
And then, what you need to save, and you always be safe.
There are 5,000 errant religions out here right now. Most of them have some version of once saved, always saved in there somewhere. I don't know where it came from, but
It's right here.
I'm
You
reading
surely
from the
die.
original.
You gonna surely die. That's what it says in here.
Yeah.
You gonna, and all the good things. Well, I did good. I helped her out. I did this and that. And that. That's all gone down the drain.
In a spiral.
Yeah. Okay, David.
Yep.
Thank you.
Dwayne first.
In listening to late night radio for many, many years, there's been a lot of speculation about the wheels within wheels and whether or not they were looking at a UFO and the mechanical workings within.
I've heard some of it.
There are more people that are supposed to be scientists and theologians that don't know what they're talking about. I have no idea what this stuff was he was looking at, but it will be interesting to find out.
Yep.
Don't be afraid of looking at these things, these wheels and the angels and face to face. I forgot what verse that was in. Don't be afraid.
I thought myself was some kind of vehicle for them, but that's just me. And I don't say that too loud. And it's the only thing that led me to that was the fact that wherever they went, that wheel's there, and the spirit was in the wheels. And that might be a vehicle of some sort, but that wouldn't be a alien vehicle. That was something made for them for that purpose by Elohim. And I don't go too far down that road, because once you start talking about vehicles, then the next thing that comes up is always aliens and all of that. And that's not what I'm talking about.
And you can't really say that the spirit beings needed a UFO type vehicle to move around, because Christ went to his Father and back almost instantaneously. Nothing visible.
Ruby.
It took a while for me. I used to get so angry because of my family's cousins, uncles, aunts, all those who turn away from the Father. I used to think overall, everybody. But then I came to think, as we spoke previously, Pastor, and with Sherry and Sandy, that they talk about those who been in the faith, believed, practiced it, followed it, and walked away. I used to think it was just for all, but I think of those people who've had children and children and children, and they never been in the Word, never opened the Scriptures. And I used to say, my goodness, and I used to, in my mind, condemn and get angry. But I realized, wait a minute, the Scripture talks about those who know and walk away. And that's so frightening to know that at one point you knew the Word. You would do praises and you would do Bible studies and meditations, and all of a sudden you want nothing with it. You're just like, Phil, I want to join. Yes, I want to do what the people are doing. I want to be free. I don't want to feel like I have to be tied down to this. But it's not that you're being tied down. Once you made that commitment, you got baptized and you rose back again from the waters. That was saying the past was taken into the abyss. This is a new start. Let's get it right. And I've read many times and even watched like on YouTube about Ezekiel and how the formation of it. And it just overwhelms me. And I come up with all these questions in my mind. Then I go to the Bible. No, that wasn't what it said. And I have to go back, and it's just amazing when it's broken down in the matter that you're speaking to help us understand a bit more of what the book of Ezekiel is telling us.
The only way to do this, and I read through this stuff, and it only comes together in pieces like a puzzle.
And for a reason.
He wants you to read it all. And the only way you can get it all is to read it all. But you can't do it all at the same time. That's what I was saying before about, that's what the Hebrews did in the temple. Every Sabbath, they just read the book. That's all they did. They didn't come up with some guy from down south somewhere that had this gift of the gab and get all these ideas. They had enough stuff right there, and they had a half a book. They didn't have a New Testament then.
Sister Ruby, I said them questions for years. Couldn't understand until Pastor told me. I didn't believe it in first their own self. But how can you teach somebody the word from here and then go back on it?
Happens all the
I
time.
asked the pastor that for years until I finally got it.
It's mind blowing.
It's not, and then you look at Israel, they've been through stuff.
And
Over and over, and they just forget it, you know?
they're still doing it.
Yeah.
They're still in all of these negotiations with the United States to help them fight Iran. Why? Yes.
I just wanted to make mention in chapter 3 where he says, the Father says, go to Israel and speak to them, not to a foreign language, not to a foreign nation, because they would listen. You know, and I used to wonder, like, why would he pick Israel, the most stiff-hearted, hard-hearted people?
Yeah. The hardest first.
Yeah, exactly.
Everybody else will be easy.
Yeah, exactly.
But they never caught on.
Right.
They never obeyed. They still to this day have never obeyed. That's his whole thing with them, why they were coming up in flesh when they come back, and a lot of people still don't realize this, they're going to come up back in flesh. And because they said 3 times distinctly, I will do this. We will do this. And you will do it. And if you don't do it, and that's when they will come back. And they had I went through this thing hundreds of times before I saw it. And it's here in Ezekiel somewhere too. And I'll get to that eventually, and we'll see it all together. But they will come back in skin, the same flesh. And if they don't, at that time, kneel down and do what they said do, they're done. And that all that stuff about them being the chosen ones, they had unchosen themselves. Yes, exactly. Rui.
The Father surely says, I will have mercy whom I will have mercy. We look at the example of Debbie said, Solomon. Did all that he did. Knowing right from wrong, he weakened. And he had mercy on him at the end. And he gave him the strength. No, not Solomon. Samson. Was it? When he was put in the pillars, when he asked him to give him the strength.
Samson.
And he gave him that strength. He wanted to redeem himself. But he died along with them. But the Father had mercy on him and gave him back that strength that one last time. So if he did it for him, he's going to do it for those who desire to try to get it. But even at the end, we're striving every moment, every time we wake up and we're given that breath of life. And we wake up. He has mercy on us. Because he's saying, all right, it's another chapter. Get it right. And again and again. Then the Father says, okay, this is it for you. But I just think it's just, the word amazing doesn't even fit. It just, it's just overwhelming.
He tells you what he wants.
Yes.
Even in isolated places like Ecclesiastes, where he says plainly a time for all these different things. One of the things that he makes time for is a time to die. And the only thing that puts that there is some people will die because of their refusal to obey him. And there was no death until that came into play. And that time wasn't there either. But that time is there now. It's got to be used by somebody. Don't make it you. Don't make it me. Dwayne.
See, next week we're going to get into the parting of the hairs. You're going to find a real close parallel to the goals of the United Nations.
Yep. There's a lot of stuff in there.
For next week.
There's a lot of stuff in there. But a lot of it, if it comes across me, it'll come up. Any others? Next week, part 2.